Welcome to Horror Franchise Wednesday. Let's finish the Prom Night franchise with Prom Night 4, Deliver Us from Evil. This is streaming on Tubi, I think, so you can watch it for free there. This has a completely different director and writer now. This has nothing to do with Mary Lou anymore. 2 and 3 are the only ones that have Mary Lou. This is a whole new killer. And the plot synopsis here says, two teenage couples have a terrible time with a killer monk who has escaped from his cell. This one also has Brock Simpson from the first 3 Prom Night movies, so he's in all 4 of them. That's the only continuity here. This is a whole new story, whole new villain, whole new characters, and is it good? Let's talk about it. So one of the things that I liked about Prom Night 4, Deliver Us from Evil, I like that this one went back to its roots with a non-supernatural slasher. I mean, the guy can bleed from his hands and feet all of a sudden, like he's Jesus on the cross. There's something supernatural going on here, but it's not like Mary Lou. It's different. Like, this guy can die. He's mortal. So it's not like part 2 and 3. I like a more grounded slasher movie where the guy can get killed or girl or whoever. I'm not a big fan of the supernatural slasher stuff. And this one has a lot of slasher elements to it. This one feels the most like a slasher after part 2 and 3. You got, a decent body count, like 7 people die in this movie. There's a final girl and a final chase. I think the last 15 minutes of this movie are surprisingly good. It was so good I considered changing my rating, but I'm not going to because I have some major problems with this movie. But the last 15 minutes, I think, are actually pretty good. It's intense. You got a final chase, final girl. It's almost like a Friday the 13th movie, just not as great. But, you got this guy with a unique weapon. I like his choice of weapon. It goes with his profession. He's got this big old crucifix, and, the end of it is like a knife, like a dagger. He's, like, slicing people with it. He shoots, like, fire out of it. He's, like, slinging holy water out of it, and then, like, ignites and turns into fire, and he's lighting shit on fire. I thought that was pretty funny, pretty cool. I like a unique weapon in my slasher movies. And the only character in this movie that I gave a shit about or I thought was entertaining in any way was Laura. She's the blonde girl. She's the promiscuous teen, the slut, I guess. She actually has some good dialogue. I thought she was pretty funny. I liked her character. And the score by Paul Zaza, who did the score for all these movies and all kinds of Canadian slashers. I thought his score was actually pretty good in this movie. It's a good horror score. So those are the things I liked about the movie. The things I don't like about this movie is that the first 40 minutes of this movie is boring. I was checking my watch. I was in and out of it, just not engaged at all. Didn't care about most of the characters. It took forever to get to the freaking summer home. That's where most of the movie takes place in the second half. But the first half is all this setup for the villain, like them keeping an eye on him, and then eventually he finally breaks out. They could have had him break out a lot sooner. I think that's what they should have done. Have him break out by like the 20-minute mark, not the 40-minute mark. I mean, it's crazy how late in the movie he breaks out and gets to the summer home. And they decided to go back to the serious tone, and I feel like that was a mistake. I mean, 2 and 3. 2 was more like half and half. It was silly, but it wasn't like over the top. 3 went way more silly, and then this one just went way back to 180 and went completely serious again. And I feel like that was a mistake. This one should have tried to have a little bit more fun, and therefore I probably would have been more favorable towards it. But the fact that they decided to be more serious again just didn't work for me. And it just feels much more small scale and less quality than the other ones. It just feels ultra low budget. There's not a lot of gore in here. I don't think there's any gore in the movie at all, actually. So the kills are lame. I like the weapon, but what he does with it, nothing really impressive. So the kills aren't really outstanding here. And the religious overtones I don't care for in horror movies, especially my slashers. I don't care for it. All the religious crap and, the guy saying prayers as he's killing people. I don't care for that stuff. So final thoughts. I was just underwhelmed by this. I was pretty bored, especially in the first half. And the second half didn't really make up for it that much. The last 15 minutes are the best part. The final chase is good. It's intense. It has a good score. But the kills aren't that great. The characters aren't that great. The killer is not that great. It's just underwhelming slasher. It's not worth seeking out, if you ask me. Unless you're a completist, check it out. But it's not the best in the series, nowhere near it. So when it comes to Prom Night 4, Deliver Us from Evil, for me, this one was just wasted time. Alright, spoiler discussion. So we open up in 1957 at Hamilton High once again, and Mary Lou is not there. That would have been cool if they like showed her in the background, like, you know, someone said something like, "Oh look, it's Mary Lou," because this is supposed to be the same universe as 2 and 3. So when they went back to the same exact year and just focused on other characters, I thought that was odd, and that like, just for the fans to be like, "Oh look, and there's Mary Lou," and then maybe the accident from part 2 happens again. I don't know. They could have did something to tie it to part 2 and 3 more. We get the line, "It's not who you come with, it's who you go home with" line. We get a couple that gets killed in their car, and a simple throat slash, and the other guy gets killed off camera, I think, or he gets stabbed in the stomach, lights the car on fire, and like all cars when they're on fire, it blows up. And then his palms are bleeding and his feet are bleeding just supernaturally, like he's possessed or something. He thinks he's Jesus, something like that. And it flashes forward to the present day, like 1991. It's been like 34 years, and the guy doesn't look like he's aged at all. He just has a beard, and then they shave it, and he looks the same that he did 34 years ago. So I guess being possessed is good for your skin because he looks good. And even the other guy, the other priest, Jaeger, Father Jaeger, he looks pretty good too for 34 years older. And so Brock Simpson, the actor from 1, 2, and 3, he's here as a father, Father Colin, and now he's in charge of watching over Jonas, the villain. And what's he do on day 1? He decides to stop giving him the meds, stop sedating him, stop, giving him his drug to make sure that he's not going to escape. And then, of course, he escapes. So it's like day 1 on the job, and he's fucking up already. And so Jonas escapes. His feet are bleeding, like I said. And Colin gets the Linda from Halloween Kill. He's on the phone. And the killer comes up from behind, wraps the cord around his throat. The cardinal comes to investigate because he was on the phone with him. He comes to investigate, and he's like, let's make it look like a suicide. That's what people will believe, that a priest committed suicide, even though priests all believe that if you kill yourself, you go to hell, right? I don't think this priest would kill himself. And why would they make it look like a suicide? They're just trying to bury the secret that they've been hiding in their basement. Jonas, they don't want anyone to know that he escaped, that he killed a priest, so let's make it look like he killed himself. But it's like, why keep the fucker alive at all? If he's possessed, why not do some, exorcism shit or kill him? Just fucking kill him. I don't know why they're doing their own, prison stuff down there, like shackling him and acting like a prison. They're a freaking church. They shouldn't be keeping people prisoner in their basement. They should just murder the guy or try helping him. But they gave up for 34 years, and they're just wasting all their money on freaking drugs to sedate the fucker when it would be a lot cheaper to put a bullet in his head instead. We get a weird scene where the friend Laura wants to see if her friend's gay, so she's like massaging her shoulders, and she's like slowly taking her bra off, and the friend's like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Oh, I was just checking to see if you're gay. I was reading an article," and blah blah blah. It's like, that scene was pretty funny. And then they make a toast in the car to Jamie Lee Curtis that felt very forced, just to be like, "Oh, it's a cute little nod to the first movie. Let's say Jamie Lee Curtis's name." It was just random, like, to Jamie Lee Curtis. Why would they say that? So just like in Sleepaway Camp 2, this guy, the killer, gets in a truck with a foul-mouthed sinner who's talking about how, "I'm going to get pussy, kitty, 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 kitty," and then he gets killed off camera. It just reminded me of when Angela got in the car with that one chick who's like, "I'm too dumb to fuck," or "too dumb to drink," or "too old to fuck," something like that. And then she just gets killed for being a foul-mouthed sinner. That's what it reminded me of. And I should review that movie, because that's way better than this. And so they get to the summer home, and it used to be a monastery, and that's why the killer's going back there. The pervy brother is getting killed outside, and how did he get there? I mean, his younger brother is like what, 14, 15? And they said that this place was over an hour away from prom, which is probably near their house, right? So they drove an hour there, and the brother somehow followed them. Was he in a trunk? How did he get there? I'm very curious about that. This little kid is determined to see some action. So he walked an hour or hitched a ride to get to that place. Well, if he walked, it would take more than an hour, because, if they drove an hour, he walked for like 3 or 4 hours at least. I don't know, like, it was just confusing how he got there. They didn't show us how, but it doesn't really matter. It's just stupid little shit I like to point out. But yeah, the pervy brother gets killed, so I guess that's child death. I'm always an advocate for that shit. And so this movie actually takes music from My Bloody Valentine. I thought that was interesting and lazy at the same time. You know, it's like the music box theme to My Bloody Valentine. They just insert it right here, copy and paste. And so this guy gets his his skull crushed like Grady in Halloween 4, just picked off the ground, crushes his skull. I thought this scene was actually kind of cool when she goes outside and she's like, what is that stuff? She can't really tell what's out there. And then all of a sudden, like, these two big wooden crosses light on fire, and both of her friends are on there, like hung up and burning out. Well, not burning alive because they're already dead. Their dead bodies are burning. I thought that was actually kind of a cool visual and macabre and awesome. So there's little things to take away from this movie, but it's just too boring. It's a disappointing slasher. She calls 911 and they flat out tell her there's no 911 service in your area. What? Get the fuck out of here. And I like how the boyfriend has a gun, starts loading it. There's the killer. What's he do? He runs away. He's like, oh shit. Just starts running. It's like gun versus crucifix. Who do you think's going to win? Like, I don't understand his decision there. He starts running upstairs, not out the door. All right. Shouldn't we know better by now? It's the 90s, right? So then we get this scene where the guy's on the roof and the killer is in the attic. And you can see that the ceiling is a high up ceiling. So this is a big attic. And the roof is pretty high up. So he would have to have a very long knife or a very long arm. He would have to be standing on something. He's like somehow stabbing the roof. And it would not happen because his arm is not that long. But yeah, he's like stabbing the guy. He stabs him right through the foot. And I thought that scene was actually kind of cool. It's kind of like in the Friday the 13th reboot when the guy's getting stabbed through the floor. And this moron just starts blind firing into the roof below him. He's like shooting down, like, oh, hopefully I'll get him. I hate that movie. I always hate when people blind fire. It just pisses me off. It's a dumb decision. And of course he falls off the roof and the killer throws his knife down towards him. It hits him right in the heart. So then, yeah, the cops call back finally. I guess her call went through successfully earlier. They called her, and she hangs up on the police, not giving them any information about where she's located because the killer is on the line also. You know, he says something and she freaks out and she hangs up on the cop. Who cares if he's on the line too? She could have said something like, here's my address, here's where I'm at, help me. She just panics and hangs up on the cop, which is stupid. And the killer lights himself on fire on accident. He's like using his weapon. He's flinging fire out of it. And then the whole freaking shed lights on fire and blows up. I guess there's canisters of gasoline in there. And of course, at the very end, you know, he's in the ambulance and he's alive. His eyes open up. And then in a completely different location, the final girl, her eyes open up too. So it's like they're linked now telepathically. Like, when he's awake, she's awake. What the hell does that mean? Like, what are they trying to tell me there? That they're linked now? That she can just sense that he's alive still? And how the fuck would he be alive still? I guess he's not mortal. I guess he is supernatural. I lied earlier. It's not back to basics. But yeah, that's the end of the movie. Hockey Mask Award for Best Character in this movie will be Laura, the promiscuous blonde friend. And the Hanky Award for Worst Character in this movie, I guess, will go to Father Colin, because he's responsible for everything happening. All you had to do was do your job. And the hottest chick in this movie will be Laura, the blonde chick. And the Clap Award for Best Scene in this movie will be when she finds her friends outside burning on the cross, and then she's getting chased through like the wine cellar and stuff. Like the final chase of the movie, that's all where the meat and potatoes are. And the Mr. Hat Award for Best Kill will go to the opening kills, because it's really the only kills that are on screen for the most part in this movie. The Mr. Twig Award for Lamest Kill will go to Father Colin, whose death is made to look like a suicide later on. And those are my thoughts on Prom Night 4, Deliver Us from Evil. Let me know what you thought about this slasher movie in the comments below. And keep an eye out for my ranking coming out soon. And as always, if you like what you've seen, you can hit this like button and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And until next time, auf Wiedersehen.